Speaking Sports. I'm your host, Larry Frank, and another great show for you in store tonight. Tonight, about 15 minutes from now, we are going to have the writer for Empire Sports Media, who covers the New York Mets, Daniel Marcillo, will be joining us live. So, you definitely will be joining us live. We're happy to have him with us. And we got lots and lots to talk about today. So I want to get right into it. I want to let all you fans that are joining us right now, please do me a favor. Go ahead and share this to your timeline. We have many different groups watching us tonight. We got some New York Mets group. I know we have Crew Life, the great Rob Thompson watching us. Do me one favor. It'll take 1 second. Hit the share button on your timeline, and let's go ahead and share it with all our friends so they can enjoy this great show with us as well. So, I want to remind you all that we are on several different platforms that you can now listen to us on and watch us on. One is YouTube. Go to Frankly Speaking Sports. The other is obviously the platform that some of you are on right now on Facebook, Frankly Speaking Sports. We're also on 7 different podcast platforms, from Anchor FM to Spotify to Breaker to Google. So just lots of different ways to watch our show. And don't forget Twitter. If you have a Twitter account, go to Larry Frankus, that's with the US at the end, and go ahead and follow me. We put all of our podcasts on all these different platforms for your listening pleasure. As I see dozens of people starting to get on the air here and listen to us, do me one favor before we get this show started. Just share it to your timeline. It'll take 1 second. Hit the share button. Let all your friends enjoy this show. Now, we got some big news to start out the program with today. For those of you that got home late, might have not listened to the sports news, we had some sports news breaking down from the Big Ten Conference in college sports. Not just college football, but college sports in general. And the Big Ten announced it will be going to a conference-only season. In simple terms, it means there's only going to play teams that are in their conference. They are the first Power 5 conference to go ahead and decide this. This will be for all fall sports. Those sports, let me see if I got them listed here. Yes, they will include men's and women's cross country, men's football, field hockey, men's and women's soccer, and women's volleyball. So all of them will be going to a conference only. And supposedly the reason for this is pretty simple. Obviously because of COVID-19, but they want to be able to be in more of a geographical area where they don't have to travel these long distances and be more receptive to contracting this virus. And they want to be able to do more universal tests on all the staff members and the players. So they felt the best way to do this is to limit it to conference games only. The only issue you're going to have here now, in college football especially, is going to be, what do you do for the playoffs? And it's a great question. I'd love to get some input on this, but do you extend the amount of teams that are currently in the college playoff format if you are going to conference-only games? Because what that would do, let's say you go ahead, I would say extend it to 8 teams. You would have your Power 5 conferences. Obviously, those would each, the winners would each go ahead and play in the playoffs. Then you get 3 out-large teams, where teams like in the past, like a UCF, that had an undefeated record would actually make it, and you have 8 teams. But as of now, if you're just joining us, the Big Ten has announced it will be for all fall sports will be going to a conference-only season. They're the only Power 5 conference to have announced this. We will, maybe you should expect some more of these conferences going ahead and doing so in the near future, but we'll find out. But as of now, the Big Ten conference only. And like I said, for those of you fans that are joining us, let me know you're here. Do a quick message. Say a quick hello. Go ahead, share with your friends. Let's have a great show this evening. Let's get lots of fans on. Want to welcome the New York Mets fans from a couple of different groups that are on tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. In probably about 7-8 minutes, we're going to have Daniel Marcillo. He writes for the Empire Sports Media, and he covers the New York Mets. We'll be talking about the New York Mets. A lot of topics going on with the New York Mets. Could be a surprise team in the NL East in this 60-game format. We'll talk a lot about the Mets and what we expect from them. I remember when I was a kid, I grew up a Mets fan. First 13 years of my life, lived on Long Island. I got Mets autographs all over my wall here in my studio here. So it should be a great, fun conversation. But remember, we talked about this on our previous show on Tuesday night, that the Mets, by far, voted by Major League Baseball, have the toughest strength of schedule in the major leagues during these 60 games, during this 60-game period in 66 days. And remember, they're opening up versus Atlanta on the 24th of July. And you look at this, and like I said, any team, but the Mets obviously have to play their division, which is one of the toughest divisions in Major League Baseball, with the Braves. The Braves won the division last year. The Nationals won the World Series. The Phillies are much better. The Marlins are a scrappy little young team. Then, and on top of that the teams they got to play, the Italy team is the cross rivals in the American League East, which consists of the Tampa Bay Rays, the New York Yankees, the Boston Red Sox, the young Toronto Blue Jays, and the scrappy Baltimore Orioles. So, wow, that's all I can say. For Mets fans, if you win it, you're going to deserve it. And, you look at this Mets team, everybody's talking about Syndergaard being out. It's, unbelievable what the Mets are going to have to do. It's a big loss, and it is a big loss. And we're going to talk to Daniel Marcillo about this in a little bit. But if you look at that starting pitching staff, even without Syndergaard, you got Jason DeGrom, Cy Young Award winner. Marcus Stroman, everybody knows him, especially when he was with Toronto. Rick Porcello, a former Cy Young Award winner. Steve Matz and Walker, who used to pitch for Michael Walker, who used to pitch for St. Louis. So even with Syndergaard down and hurt this year, the Mets have a pretty damn good, solid starting five. And not only that, they got one hell of a bullpen when you add, Diaz and Familia in there. That's a good little team. And we're not even talking about that offensive strength that the New York Mets got. This team could be one of the surprise teams in all of Major League Baseball. And believe me, if they even make the playoffs, they're going to deserve it. It's going to be well-deserved. But when you got, we talked about the Tampa Bay Rays in previous days, and we talked about their depth, and we talked about each position and how good they are. Look at the New York Mets. They got, everyone knows Pete Alonso, obviously. 53 home runs last year. You got Wilson Ramos, the former Tampa Bay Ray, who is an unbelievable hitting catcher. They got Robinson Cano, Jeff McNeil, They're very high on this kid at shortstop, Ahmed Rosario. They got J.D. Davis. The biggest, if you want to say anything good for the New York Mets can come out of a bad situation like COVID-19, it has to be Yoenis Cespedes. Because here's a guy that probably wouldn't have got much time playing in the National League because they don't have a DH, and now because of the suspended season and the shortened season, the DH is now going to be in the National League for the remainder of this year, and Cespedes is going to get to play. And what a benefit that is for that offensive lineup in New York. Then you had Nemo, Marisnik they got in the offseason, J.D. Smith, Michael Conforto, and don't forget Jed Lowry, the utility player that they picked up. This team has some depth, and you gotta watch out for this team. It's a very dangerous team. And when most of the people will say, well, they got a new coach, they're gonna have to get acclimated to Luis Rojas. So let me tell you something about Rojas. He's been in their minor league system for quite a few years, so a lot of these young guys, like the Alonsos and the McNeils, and the Rosarios, they played for Rojas when they were in the minor leagues, so they already know what he's all about. They know what he is as a coach. They know what he expects. They know his culture. They know his mindset. So this is not going to be as difficult of a transition with a new manager than it would have been if Carlos Beltran would have been retained. Obviously, he was let go because of the cheating scandal in Houston. And, I think, there's a couple of things that the Mets have actually benefited on that are under the radar because of what happened, unfortunately, with COVID-19. And those two things are Cespedes and Rojas. Cespedes being able to play and Rojas being a manager that they don't really have to get as acclimated to as they would have with Carlos Beltran, even though Beltran did play for the New York Mets a couple of years ago, or a couple of years before he retired. I want to let you all know we're about a minute and a half away from Daniel Marcillo, who writes for the Empire Sports Media and covers the New York Mets. Once again, I want to welcome you all to our show tonight. It's going to be a terrific show, and we'll get Daniel on momentarily. For those of you just joining us, want to remind you, if you can please do me a big favor, share this to your timeline. It'll take 1 second. All you do is go down there, hit the share button, go ahead and share it to your timeline, and let's make sure all your friends have the same opportunity to watch this show as you do. Now, some surprising news we're going to talk about, we talk about the 2020 schedule. It just came out the other day. Well, guess what? The 2021 Major League Baseball schedule came out as well. And it's kind of amazing for all you Rays fans. Next year, if you want to think about next year already, for the first time since 2009, the Tampa Bay Rays in 2021 will actually open the season on the road in Miami versus the Marlins. And next year, the season will begin on April 1st. That's 2021. We still got time on that. Some reason, don't ask me why, they let it out a lot earlier than usual, but that's the way they decided to do it. We're going to go ahead and get Daniel on the line. If any of you, while we're doing this interview, has any questions, concerns, topics you want to talk about, you can leave a message right here. If you're on another platform, I might not be able to see your message. If you're on Frankly Speaking Sports, I will. But after the phone call with Daniel Marcillo, if you want to call in, anybody can call in. Rays fans, Mets fans, Cardinal fans, I know we got on the line. Baseball fans in general, just sports fans. You can call in at 479-553-7008. Wait till after our conversation with Daniel Marcillo. Let's go ahead and get Daniel on the phone. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my great honor, thrill, and most of all a pleasure to introduce to you on the Frankly Speaking Sports Hotline. He writes for Empire Sports Media, covers the New York Mets. Please welcome in Daniel Marcillo. Daniel, how you doing tonight, buddy?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing great. It's great to have you back on the show again.
Glad to be back.
You know, Daniel, you look at the big news in the past couple of days that are concerning the New York Mets. It has to be the possible sale of the team. And I know you did an article and some stuff on this. What is the latest you're hearing about the sale of the New York Mets?
Well, the biggest thing that's been reported is that Steve Cohen is back in the mix because the other 7 potential bidders or potential owners for the future aren't really giving the Wilpons what they want. They're looking for about $2 billion from their potential bids. But Cohen, as of now, he can give that $2 billion, but there's also rumors that he wants to give $4 billion so he can buy SNY, which the Wilpons were looking to keep once they sold the Mets.
Right. And so let me ask you this. A lot of people knew that at one time A-Rod and J-Lo were one of the groups that were bidding for the team. Are they still in the running for the team, or are they now just considered out of it?
I think they're still in the running. I think out of the 7 bidders, I think they're still at the top of the class for that. But I just think the money that Steve Cohen brings is not anything that A-Rod and J-Lo can currently do right now.
Now, this is no easy ride this upcoming year for the New York Mets. We got 60 games in 66 days, and Major League Baseball voted the New York Mets as having the toughest strength of schedule than any team during this 60-game stretch. This is not going to be a marathon like a regular year. This is going to be a Mets team that has to be sprinting right from the get-go, isn't it?
Yeah, I think the important thing for them is to get out of the gate strong. We've heard about the Mets sort of them being a second-half team over the last few seasons. We saw it in 2015, 2016, and we saw it again last season. So it's extremely important for them to get out of the gate so they can control their own destiny instead of having to climb over teams as they had to last season.
Now, you look at this, and everybody's obviously the big news during the offseason was Syndergaard going down with the arm surgery. But if you look at this Mets pitching staff, where a lot of people are saying, oh, no, they're in trouble. And, of course, Syndergaard's a big loss. But you got to be pretty impressed with the names DeGrom, Stroman, Porcello, Matz, and Watka as your starting 5 pitchers.
Yeah, I think they're certainly in a good shape. Obviously, it's hard to replace a pitcher as strong as Syndergaard was. But when I think in a short season like this, you're really looking for maybe 4 or 5 innings, and with these expanded rosters, you can go to the bullpen frequently early in the first month or so of the season. And plus, I wouldn't be surprised if the Mets even toyed around with the idea of Seth Lugo making a couple starts during the season as well.
Yeah, and you talked about, early in the season, obviously with the bullpen. Let's just say for now, one of those guys could be in the bullpen. So if Lugo's in the bullpen and you had him with Betances, Diaz, Familia, Gisselman, I mean, that bullpen on paper looks pretty solid too, don't it?
Yeah, it looks real good, and I think one of the biggest questions that we're all wondering is what is Edwin Diaz going to be like? How much of a leash are the Mets going to give him? Because like we talked about, in the sprint of a 60-game season, you can't afford to have Diaz put together 2 or 3 or 4 blown saves, and you're going to be fine. I think 1 or 2 is really the max he's going to get in a row before the Mets just say next man up, especially with the live arms they have in their bullpen.
Yeah, now, it's been unfortunate, the shortened season, 60 games, obviously nothing, nothing has come good, obviously, out of COVID-19. But for the Mets, if you look at a little ray of hope in such a tragic time, it has to be the rule in the NL of now having the DH, because when we originally thought we might not get to see Yoenis Cespedes play a lot, now it looks like he's going to be a major factor in the success of this team this year.
Yeah, right now he looks healthy, and I think with the DH, the Mets are a team that's got a lot of depth on it. They have guys like Cespedes who can DH or play left field. J.D. Davis can do the same. Dom Smith is a good lefty bat there. If the Mets wanted to go with a switch hitter, hopefully a healthy Jed Lowry is there as well. They have a lot of options. I left out Wilson Ramos if they needed to give him a day off from behind the dish. They have a lot of options, which I think Cespedes is going to be as an immense part, because we haven't seen Cespedes and another power threat like Pete Alonso, Michael Conforto, all hitting or healthy together at the same time, which is what's going to make a very, very tough lineup for anybody to pitch to in the 60-game season.
Yeah, and you talk about this lineup and the depth. It's really impressive when you look down the lineup and on this roster when you talk about Ramos, who's not just a great defensive catcher, but he's been known to be a great hitter. You got, like you said, Alonso, 50-something homers last year. Cano, McNeil, Rosario could be a big question. J.D. Davis, Nemo, Marisnik, Smith, Conforto, Lowry, like you said, Cespedes. I mean, when you talk about this team and the potential for these guys to be productive and scoring runs, I mean, it seems like the sky can be the limit for this team.
Yeah, and in one of the rare times in Mets history, I think we can look at the 12 or 13 hitters on a roster and say all 13 of them could start on any other major league team, but since the talent is so deep with the Mets right now, some guys like a Marisnik, like a Dom Smith, or like a Jed Lowry, if he's healthy, have to be relegated to the bench just because of the immense talent that the Mets have surrounded around them.
Now, let me ask you this, Daniel. We are talking to Daniel Marcillo. He writes for Empire Sports Media, covers the New York Mets. What do you see, and when you look at this team as a whole, what do you see as the Mets' biggest challenges going into this 60-game season in 66 days?
I think the biggest challenge is going to be getting Jacob deGrom on the mound as often as possible, because in a 60-game season, if all 5 pitchers make all their starts and stay healthy, he only gets to pitch 12 times. And ideally, you want to get maybe a couple extra starts if you can out of him. And I think really the biggest emphasis for the Mets is going to be how quickly is Edwin Diaz going to be the Edwin Diaz that they traded for, because experts have talked about him being as a potential Cy Young candidate because of the potential he has for the Mets and maybe even carrying the Mets to the postseason. If the Mets get the Edwin Diaz they traded for, I don't think there's any reason to expect the Mets not to win the division.
Now, and I was just going to ask you, my next question is, you look at, every year there's a surprise team. I guess last year you could say it was the Minnesota Twins, what they did with new head coach, manager Rocco Baldelli and that team over there and all the home runs they hit. Could the Mets be this year's surprise team in Major League Baseball?
I think so. They're in a weird spot because there's some people who look at them as very much contenders, and there's other people who overlook them and don't see them as such a talented team based on what happened last year, where Cano kind of came on in the second half. Guys like Edwin Diaz didn't pitch as well, but Tantas, we're hoping he's healthy. So I think the Mets have a lot of what ifs, or I hope this happens, but to me, they're very high percentage players to depend on, and I really think they're going to surprise a lot of people. I know some people have them projected around the 35 to 37 win mark, but they can get on a run very easily like they did last season, and they can easily run 40 games and win the division pretty easily.
What do you think that magic number is this year for a team? Well, obviously, not just to win the division, but to get in the playoffs. Did you figure out maybe in your head that there's a certain number that you think that could definitely get a team in?
Yeah, it's a tough number to figure out because you have divisions like the NL East where even your worst team, the Miami Marlins, projected, they can easily go 500, and the best team in the division could win 35 games. But to me, I think 33 to 34 in that sweet spot should be enough to get you into the postseason, especially with divisions. You're only playing teams in your division and teams on your coast. So I think 33 to 34 should be enough to squeak you into a wild card spot.
Well, and I would think, when you're looking at whether you're in the AL East or the NL East, you probably have the toughest schedules than anybody else in all of Major League Baseball because they're probably, arguably, the two best divisions in all of baseball. It could be a possibility that the only teams from the AL East and the NL East that actually make it this year could be the division winners.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that people sort of overlooked last year when we looked at the Nationals where they only won 80-some-odd games or they barely got to the 90 mark. They were looked at the underdogs, but people forgot that they're playing the NL East for a good chunk of their games. So they're playing good competition day in, day out. And, they lost some big games against the Mets, but that's really what's going to happen this year where you may have a division winner that is only 33 and 27, but that doesn't mean they're not as good as a 40-win team. That especially means this year that the competition they're playing was very tough, and they played their competition well, and it's going to translate to the postseason sort of like it did for the Nationals last year.
So let me ask you, if you had to think of one guy that's under the radar on the New York Mets right now that could play a major role in their success this year, who would be that surprise person?
Well, I would go with Justin Wilson out of the bullpen, the left-hander. He's really the only left-hander the Mets have in that bullpen. And when you're playing the AL East and the NL East, when left-handed bats you're going to have to deal with your Harpers, the Juan Sotos, very good left-handed hitting that you need to get out in. Wilson got left-handers and right-handers out well last season. He's not a big-name, flashy guy, but he was there pretty much all season when he returned from injury. And he pitched very well. His best baseball of the year came in the second half. He helped sort of calm down the Mets bullpen that was struggling. And him and Seth Lugo really took the reins through the second half of the season and kept the Mets in the race.
Now, it was unfortunate with COVID-19. The season was suspended indefinitely. Now we're starting back up in about 2 weeks. As much, before spring training started, Carlos Beltran was the manager. Obviously, he was let go with the Houston Astros scandal and everything that, he was involved in with that. Do you think that, Luis Rojas is somebody that a lot of the guys on this team have grown up with as they came through the minor leagues because he's been in the minor leagues. For these guys, it might even be an easier transition for them under Luis Rojas than it would have been under Carlos Beltran.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail right on the head there because, like you said, a lot of these guys grew up and became more mature baseball players throughout the minors with Rojas. Also, he's got a good understanding of the organization. And really, with today's baseball player, they just want a manager who they can depend on, they can trust. They don't need someone who's sort of, your Tommy Lasorda type of characters where that's really what they say goes and stuff like that. They want a guy who's going to sort of be a guy they can be, I don't want to say friends with, but someone they can rely on, they can depend on. And a lot of these guys enjoy being around Luis Rojas. He understands how these players work. And I think he stepped into a rough situation when Beltran was let go right before spring training. And now with the players, they had a rough situation. They have to figure out when are they going to hit the baseball fields again. So I think it's a good combination for them to get through a year like this.
Yeah, and, when you look at this team, let's say for an unforeseen reason, and we pray this doesn't happen, but should a player go down and contract on this team the coronavirus, let's just say one or two players, do you feel confident that this team has enough depth in all positions that they can overcome that?
I would say the only position I would be concerned at is the starting pitching, because the Mets are very reliant on going to guys they've seen pitch before, a.k.a. your Chris Flexon, who's still a Met, or Corey Oswalt and Walker Lockett now. I think if you have a point where you realize you're going to lose someone, that doesn't matter 1 through 5, you're going to lose someone in your rotation to the virus, I think you got to go with a prospect, like Peterson, someone in the minor league system who, yes, they'll have to make their major league debut, but if you look at Lockett and you look at Oswalt, both of them had career ERAs over 6. So what are you really losing in throwing a rookie out there who hasn't seen the big leagues yet? Who could possibly give you more than what these guys can?
Right. Now, I have to put you on the spot. I mean, I know you think the Mets can win the division, but I'm going to put you on a spot here. We're going to go past the season. Let me ask you this, Daniel, before I let you go. If you had to pick the two teams at the end of the year that'll play in the World Series, obviously one from the American League, one from the National League, as of now, who would you think is the favorites?
I think it's a pretty basic answer to go with, but I think the Dodgers are going to be the team that represents the National League. And I think the New York Yankees are finally going to sort of get over that hump that they've been trying to get over the last couple of seasons and finally get into the World Series. They throw their money at Garrett Cole because they need that ace they can depend on. And I know losing Tanaka and stuff, I know not having Severino stuff, but again, their bullpen and their hitting is just so strong and deep that I think they'll be able to make another deep run and finally get to the World Series.
Well, Daniel, I want to thank you so very, very much for joining us on Frankly Speaking Sports tonight. Hopefully, during the season, everything's going well enough where we can definitely have you back on again.
Yep, I look forward to being back on. Thank you.
All right, be safe, my friend.
You too.
That was Daniel Marcillo. He writes for the Empire Sports Media and covers the New York Mets. What a great, great guy. He's been on the show before, and it's really a pleasure to have him. Want to remind you all of a couple different things. For those of you that are listening right now and are on different platforms, you can now call us in for the next 20 minutes. Our phone lines are going to be open. You can call in at 479-553-7008. That number is on your screen. If somebody's on the line, just wait till they get off the phone, then the next person call in. We love to answer your questions, and it doesn't have to just be about baseball. It could be about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers right here, or football, or basketball, or hockey. A lot of great things coming up. So baseball is actually 2 weeks away, 2 weeks from yesterday. You got the Yankees opening up one day, I think, versus the Nats. Then you got the Giants versus Dodgers, and then on the 24th, which is 2 weeks from today, you got everybody else, the rest of the 26 teams playing. So 2 weeks away, Major League Baseball will be back in full swing. Now, let's not forget, we got the NBA starting back up in July. We have hockey, which is voting on resuming their season on August 1st. That is correct, on August 1st. So that's only 3 weeks away. And then the NHL will be back. Then you have football camps that open up. So every single, sport, the 4 major sports, and that's not even including NASCAR, will all be back in action come the 1st of August. There was never a time that I can remember where all 4 or 5 sports were going on at the same exact time. So for sports fans, it's going to be fun. It's going to be incredible. We'll obviously be watching all those games on TV, but hey, it's better than not watching them at all. So we're really, really excited to have sports back. I'm looking down at messages. Please, if you're on the line, say hello. Let me know you're here. Let me know where you're from. We love to talk to you. Love to get you involved. For those of you, as Daniel was coming on, we did mention a couple of things that I did want to get into. One of those things was the 2021 baseball schedule has already come out. Surprise, surprise. We didn't even start the 2020 season, and they already came out. For some reason this year, they came out a lot earlier than previous years with the following year's schedule. And for those of you fans that are Tampa Bay Rays fans, I want to let you know, in 2021, it'll be the first time since 2009 that the Tampa Bay Rays will open the season on the road. They will open it next year, April 1st, 2021, in Miami against the Marlins. So that is news out of Major League Baseball. Not a lot else to report out of Major League Baseball. Obviously, we keep hearing about football and things going on in football, and obviously Raheem Mostert of the San Francisco 49ers is demanding a trade, or he wants more money, or he wants both. For those of you Tampa Bay Buccaneer fans that keep texting and asking the question, what do you think about him coming to Tampa Bay? No, 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 and no. That's my answer. We got bigger fish to fry. Ronald Jones is our starting quarterback unless they go after Devontae Freeman. But right now, I don't think the running game is as big of an issue as everybody is making it out to be. Ronald Jones showed a lot of promise last year, and with a new quarterback like Tom Brady, you're going to see this guy go off this year. I've said it on many, many shows. I said it on, Frankly Speaking, Bucks on Crew Life on Wednesday night, that Ronald Jones will rush for 1,000 yards minimum this year. And all of you people that are listening, they go, this guy's crazy. What's he smoking? But I want you to be the same people when he does do it that says, yeah, I remember Larry said that on Frankly Speaking Sports and Frankly Speaking Bucks, that Ronald Jones will rush for 1,000 yards. And last night it was kind of ironic, the timing of it. We had Dean Jensen, the son of Ryan Jensen, on our Wednesday's show on Crew Life, Frankly Speaking Bucks. And I was talking to Dean about how Ali Marpet and his son Ryan are probably two of the best interior linemen in the NFL. And then today, I see a newspaper clipping or an article, I think it might have been Sports Illustrated, don't quote me on the source, that came out with the article that two of the best interior linemen in the NFL is, guess who? The Tampa Bay Buccaneers! That's right, Ali Marpet and Ryan Jensen. So, it's just kind of ironic. It goes to show you that whether you're listening to me on Wednesday nights on Frankly Speaking Bucks or Coach Marvin Bell on Bucks Talk with Coach Bell on Sunday nights, we know what we're talking about. We're not just some bozos off the street that, try to make things up about the NFL and about the Buccaneers and about football. We try to report to you the most updated and resourceful information on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and on all the sports teams that, we talk about on the different shows we do. And it just so happens that, once again, we were right. And, we're not here to be cocky and brag, but it just goes to show you that your confidence in us could be built very big because we do know what we're saying. So, thank you for sending me that article. It was just a great, great article. And if you did not get to see that show last night, we have it on Crew Life and we have it on Frankly Speaking Sports. We got to talk to two great, great people. Obviously, we just talked about Dean Jensen, the father of Ryan Jensen, the center of the Buccaneers. What a great, great, great interview we had with him. And then right before he came on, we had the great Greg Orman, who works for the Athletics and covers the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So just an incredible, incredible show last night. If you did not get to see it, no worries. Don't cry. Don't be sad. You can rewatch it on our platform. You can go ahead and listen to it on 7 different platforms as far as Spotify, Breaker, Google. We go ahead, we tape them so that you can have the pleasure of listening to them, not just when you have the time to sit down and watch it, but also when you're in your vehicle or you're at work. So don't worry, they're all taped. You can go back and you can watch them. Also want to thank all the fans so far that have been listening to us and supporting us. We've been doing these shows. I think we're close to 80 shows now on Frankly Speaking Sports. And we continue day after day after day to break records with the numbers of views and the number of people that are listening to our show. And none of this would be possible without our great fan base. So from the bottom of my heart, I want to thank you very much. Also want to remind you that we have gotten to the point now where we have gotten so big, and yes, we do have a huge Tampa base, but we also have other people from other areas like Arkansas, Missouri, Maryland, Texas, just to name a few, and I know I left plenty of them out, but we are now taking sponsorships. So we are big enough now where we're getting enough views and where there's enough people that need our help because of all the things going on in the world and all the things with this virus and everything. If you want to go ahead, you want to be our sponsor, you want us to do some, plugs for you, instant message me, contact me. There's several different ways. One is obviously the instant message. You can also go to franklyspeaking528@gmail.com. Once again, that's franklyspeaking528@gmail.com. So that's a couple different things that we have going on for you. We do have one more show tomorrow night before the end of the week, and then we want to remind you, this upcoming Monday, it's a show you must see. It is a must see. And I say that about all my shows. But this show, Monday night special guest, you don't get the opportunity to go ahead and get an interview with someone that played in 1969 in the Super Bowl. And we have just that for you. This Monday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, from the New York Jets Super Bowl winning team in 1969, cornerback Earl Christie will be joining us live to talk about his career in the NFL. He has a brand new book that's coming out. We're going to give him the opportunity to promote that. And we'll talk about that unbelievable, famous call by Joe Namath saying they would win the Super Bowl. And they did. So we'll have world champion, Super Bowl champion, Earl Christie on Monday night at 9 p.m. So a lot of the Jet fans out there, if you have friends that are Jets fans, they definitely want to tune in Monday night to see Earl Christie live on Frankly Speaking Sports. And we're going to continue to get more and more and more great guests like we've been getting. I hope all of you have been enjoying the guests that we've had on. We've just had some tremendous, tremendous guests. Now, one of the fans had asked earlier today, about what's going on with fans in the stands. You know, they heard about the Baltimore Ravens, and we reported this yesterday. I know Greg Orman of The Athletic, who we had on yesterday, had done an article or a caption on the Baltimore Ravens and them allowing fans in the stands. I think it's 20% of whatever 70,000 is what they would allow in the stands. Now remember, the NFL has already agreed that all the lower levels at the stadiums are going to be topped, and it's going to be used for advertising. So for those of you that have not heard that, that's every single stadium. Then you're going to sit the other 20% in the second, third, and however the heck many levels you have at each particular stadium. So I think they figured out it would be somewhere like 14,000. I don't know the exact amount that Greg said in his article, but, you know, they're going to allow 14,000 fans. And Rob Thompson is listening, and he did give me the okay on my quick math that 14,000 was correct. See, it's you can tell I didn't go to school in Tampa, Rob. I'm just kidding you, Tampa guys. I'm sorry. I'm just playing around. But anyway, that's what they're going to do. And the question has come up is, what are they going to do about the Super Bowl? And first of all, let me say this before we get to the Super Bowl. I guess it's going to be up to each individual home team and the local authorities to decide what capacity they are allowed to fill the stands to. So let's say in Baltimore, they're going to do 20%. Tampa, if everything's going well and there's a downward curve, you know, the governor, DeSantis, may say you can put 35% in Raymond James, and the people in New England in Foxborough may say, well, we only can put 10% here in New England. So it's all based on the local authorities. Now, as far as the Super Bowl goes, you know, it's a great question. What does happen with the seating capacity? And you got to remember first a couple of things. Number one, that is still, 7 months away? It's not till February. That's number one. Number two, Super Bowl tickets for the most part are purchased by businesses. You know, it's one of the only things I don't agree with all of professional sports is how they do these championship games, whether it's the World Series, the Super Bowl, the Stanley Cup, the NBA championship. You have these fans, and forget about this year a minute, but you have fans all throughout the year that are season ticket holders that pay their price for ticket, whatever the face value is. Let's just say $80, $100 or whatever, so they can have the rights to season tickets. Then, if their team, and then they get rights on special playoff prices up, if it's a home game, up to the championship games. But once the Super Bowl comes, all the World Series comes, they raise all these prices. They give these tickets to all these large businesses that couldn't give a crap all throughout the season about going to these football games. And you know who suffers? The fans that have been paying the season ticket prices the whole year, because who the hell could afford, you know, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 for one ticket for a 3-hour game? You know, and it's not being cheap, it's a fact. Your average fan has enough trouble trying to afford a ticket to a game, yet a ticket to a Super Bowl. And I always felt that it should be divvied up between the two teams that make it, where, you know, maybe you go ahead and, you know, do 50% to the businesses, 25% to tickets go to each team, or something to that effect, however you want to break it down. But for the average fan, it's not fair. And, you know, a lot of their money is obviously made off of TV revenue and the commercials they do during the Super Bowl. But, you know, the problem, and I was explaining this to Greg Orman when he was on our show last night, is definitely going to be I'm sorry, I just had a message once again. Sorry about that, guys. But, it's going to be a very big obstacle to see how many fans get in the stands, because what do you do? What do you do? You're going the whole season saying 35 or 25% of the fans are allowed to fill the capacity at Raymond James, but the Super Bowl, which is 2 weeks after, well, probably 6 weeks, up to 6 weeks after the regular season ends, you're saying maybe not. Maybe they can put more. So it's a real complex situation, but the city of Tampa has a lot to lose from an economical standpoint. They not only have the game, they have the restaurants. The airport makes huge money off that event with the airport taxes. Then you have the amusement parks, the restaurants, the hotels. It's just an incredible moneymaker for the city, who already just lost WWE, which was a huge event they were supposed to hold last year. So, I don't know what's going to happen with the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl looks like it's going to be played. The only way anything negative happens with the football season will be if there's a dramatic spike in coronaviruses, especially from a Super Bowl standpoint in the state of Florida. But how much more can Florida get in a day? I mean, Florida is up to 11,000 cases a day right now, and this was as of the end of last week. I don't know what it is as of today, if that's gone down, but, I find it hard to believe that they can get any higher in that state with these cases. So you got to think sometime in the near future there's going to be a curve that is starting to go down. And then, of course, in the fall, when everybody usually gets sick down in Florida, when the temperature starts changing and people, during those other months start coming down from up north when it gets cold, that's going to be the big thing. How the people are reacting to the, the protocols that are being put in place. And right now, everyone everywhere is very laxed on these. So it's going to be a tough one. It's going to be complicated. But, the Super Bowl's 7 months away from it. I'm just trying to get through tomorrow. We're 2 weeks away from baseball. Let's get baseball started before we start worrying about the Super Bowl in February. That's just my opinion on that. Other than that, in the sports news, I haven't commented a lot. We got about 7 minutes left in our program, and I'm really not going to go into detail because I'm just disgusted by it, and I'll just go off on one of my tangents if I do. And a lot of people are asking me about the Deshaun Jackson comments and the things that he said about Jewish people and all of this, I'm going to put it real simple. And I've said this before with the injustice and everything that was going on before in the world, and I'll say it again. There is no place anywhere for people to be racist, for people to discriminate, and people to talk bad about other people. Okay? We are all human beings. We are all the same. The only difference may be the color of our skin. But if you take the skin away from us, we are all built the same way. Whether you're black, white, Jewish, Gentile, Protestant, or Catholic, or whatever else you may be, it doesn't matter. We are all human beings. We are all people. The comments that were made by Deshaun Jackson was completely wrong. The former Tampa Bay Buccaneer, Philadelphia Eagle. They were insensitive. They were wrong. They were hateful. And I know people, he came, he apologized. And I'm not going to get into that right now because I could do a whole show on what I think about these different situations. All I know is when Drew Brees was insensitive and made the comments he made at a very bad choice of timing when he talked about people kneeling during the national anthem, this and that, the whole world wanted to turn against Drew Brees. You know, it was Charles Barkley who actually came to Drew Brees' defense and said, you know, I think you guys are reading his, you know, what he's saying wrong. And he said, even though there is a message about the kneeling, it was the part he was disagreeing with kneeling, not the message. But, you know, that was Charles Barkley coming to his defense. But now, you know, it just seems like it's a whole nother story now that Deshaun Jackson says it. And there's people that have came out and said that he was wrong, which, how can't you say he's wrong? But at the end of the day, I'm going to leave it at that. There is no place for racism anywhere in our society, and it has to come to an end. That's all I'm going to say about that right now at this time. I want to thank you all very, very much for joining us this evening. We want to thank our special guest from Empire Sports Media who covers the New York Mets, Daniel Marcillo, for joining us today. It was really a pleasure having him on. I believe this is the second time he's been on since we started our show talking about the New York Mets. Everybody, have a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow on another episode of Frankly Speaking Sports. Good night.